Your panel just wrapped up this morning. Tell us a little bit about how it went.
Well, first of all, there were over 650 people in the room for a breakfast meeting, so I think that shows incredible interest of people across the north and across BC in resource issues. Good variety of questions. We had 5 cabinet ministers giving brief presentations, and then we had questions from the audience. So really happy to have the ability to interact at that level, and looking forward to meetings the rest of today where we can have a little bit smaller groups.
Absolutely. So why was it important for you to come to Prince George and be a part of this event?
I've been coming to this resource conference for many years, even before I was an MLA. Over 10 years ago, I came as a municipal councillor for the village of Hazelton. Resources and how we exploit and manage our natural resources is extremely important for rural communities and also for the province generally with the revenue it generates. So these kind of meetings are an opportunity to reacquaint, refresh old relationships and build new relationships as well.
Nice. Well, there must certainly be a lot on your plate in your ministry. What are some of the biggest issues that you're dealing with right now?
Well, it's a big ministry. It's also probably the longest title of any ministry in the history of the legislature: forest lands, natural resource operations, and rural development. So it covers everything on the land base that people can imagine, whether it's forestry, which is still an incredibly important part of economy in BC, wildlife, land use planning, rural development, all land applications. So really, the mandate letter I had from the Premier outlines many of the most important issues, which is revitalizing the forest sector, making sure that we have a diversity of producers and the fiber that flows to those producers, First Nations participation in that industry, wildlife management, oftentimes forgotten aspect in some people's minds of a natural resource that we have, and land use planning. So those are the main topics, and of course there's many subtopics, whether it's steelhead or moose or caribou. I mean, there's all sorts of topics within the ministry.
Absolutely, never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment.
So Doug, the biggest investment in Canadian history, LNG Canada in the Northwest. What are you most excited about when it comes to that investment and what it means for the region?
Well, it's a significant investment, obviously, the largest private sector investment in natural resources in the history of the country. So there's going to be benefits from that. And also what we want to make sure is that local communities and local people not only benefit the most from the project, but also have an important say over how the project unfolds. And that's a focus of this government, as well as First Nations, whose territories the project will be crossing. And so my major focus these days is to try to put some emphasis not just on a project-by-project basis. This is a major project, but there's going to be more in the future. And to really get to the fundamental issue of how Indigenous law and Canadian law can be reconciled. This is at the heart of many of the controversies around major projects. And if we don't get to that, and if we just keep focusing on single projects, then we're not going to be able to benefit non-First Nations and First Nations alike. So that's a priority of this government, is to reconcile Western law and Indigenous law.
Certainly a lot to grapple with.
Yes.
But in any case, thank you so much, Doug. A real honor having you with us this morning.
Exciting times.